Oh no, a third of the way in. Headphones have died. Only a third of the way. I'm not used to running with my deep dark thoughts.
This is Nick, the Kilted Runner Down Under. Welcome to another episode of the show. Let's jump on in. Transform your ordinary running into extraordinary running. I hope this video will help you run better through 1% marginal gains in your very next session, whether you're a seasoned marathoner chasing a PB or somebody that's attempting a marathon for the very first time. This won't be generic running advice. This will be the nitty-gritty based on real life experience as I prepare for sub 3 hour marathon success in Sydney in less than 6 weeks time. A long way away from my 4 hour marathon effort about 13 years ago. Expect weekly vlogs with the downs and the ups that you can apply to your training and your goals. My wife is utterly bored of me chewing her ear off about running, so hopefully you won't be. Massive session this week, 36 kilometers under my belt. This was the longest run I've done with the training block. It was one of the hilliest, and it was probably the best run I've had so far. So feeling really accomplished and really confident after that one. So to give you the facts, 36 kilometers, it's about 2 hours 45 of moving time, 410 meters elevation, and average heart rate of about 160. The purpose of the session was a long run progression to test the legs under fatigue. So this is how I broke it down into 3 sections. First 22 kilometers, I did at my base pace, which is a comfortable pace for me, 4:45. The next section, next 4 kilometers at 4:30 pace, just to get the legs ticking over at a faster rate. And then the third and final chunk, 10 kilometers right at the end of the session, marathon pace, 4:10, to really just test those legs. When they're tired, how are they going to react? And really pleased, especially because that was a particularly hilly part, that they held up really well. In fact, in the last 2K, I tried to push it even more and go a sub 4 pace, but my body started to reject that, and I actually bunked in the last half kilometer. I really hit the wall, and fortunately I only had half a kilometer left, so I was able to get through. So it was a really good session to get under the belt. Oh, and when I'm talking about my pace here, I base it on GAP pace, grade assisted pace, because it was a particularly hilly run. So that gives you what the pace would be if the hills were taken out of that. So that is what I have set on my watch, and that's what I use for these hilly runs, which I find tres helpful. As for the elevation itself, Sydney is 310 meters elevation gain. So doing 410 today gave me a really good mental boost for Sydney. I've already planted the seed in there when I'm running Sydney, and when the legs are inevitably hurting or the mind is hurting, I can look back at sessions like today saying 310, easy, I've done 410, no problem, I've got that. And that maybe sounds a bit daft, but I find that works. When I'm able to recall back to certain sessions and say, I've done this, I've done the training, I've done something harder, it really helps that mental game. I don't think I'm gonna go any more than 36 kilometer. I think I'll do another 36K next week just to test the legs again with that distance. The heart rate felt about right the entire time. So for that first kind of base pace section, it averaged around about 150 beats per minute. So comfortable enough. And then for the last kind of section where I upped it to marathon pace, it was sitting around 162 on average. So again, not spiking too much. It was climbing, but it didn't spike too much. So it felt like it was in the right place. So now it's time for this week's 1% marginal gain. And the idea here is, what's the one thing that I did differently in this session that's going to give me that 1% stacking? One thing to just keep nudging me forward, keep improving. And today's is this beautiful thing. Has not been cleaned. Asics Metaspeed Edge. I have been training with these for a few months, but this was the first time that I wore it for a long run. I had been misadvising myself this entire time. I got a tip from the Aussie runner, shout out, to say this is the kind of shoe that I should be wearing in my marathon, which I didn't realize. The reason being, carbon plated. What does that mean? Well, I'm a shoe manufacturer, and that means lighter and faster. Simple. And so this was the longest that I had run in the shoe and felt great. Probably for the reasons I just said, maybe a bit of a placebo effect. Who knows? Who cares? I don't, but they felt really good. And so applying this to you, if you can, get your hands on some sort of carbon plated or faster shoe, should work great for the marathon. So that is my 1% marginal gain. And each week I want to give a couple of reflections on my run, as I hope that there's some takeaways that you can apply to your training and your goals. So the first one is my legs are holding well under fatigue. So what does that mean? It's the idea that later in the race, when your legs are inevitably feeling tired because you've been running for a long time, have you practiced that in training? Now, from what I've read, it's not a good idea to necessarily run a full marathon at marathon pace in training. That's not necessarily the goal. The goal is to build up the system in order to do that on race day. And that's been a big shift to how I trained previously. For example, when I did Tasmania, one of these medals, the Hobart Marathon last year, I did that in about 3 hours 27, so that averaged 4:45. I pretty much did all my training at 4:45. And so it served a purpose, but this time I'm changing that. I'm running more weekly mileage at easier pace and just spending some of the time at my actual marathon pace. So getting through most of yesterday's run at the easier pace and then really trying to ramp it up was a really good test, and I failed on that a few times, and I'm really pleased with how that went. In your next long run session, try splitting it up. The first section, it can be the first half, 2/3, doesn't matter, at a base pace or an easier pace. And the last section, do it at marathon pace. Try to build that into your weekly or your regular long run session. The second reflection that I had on today's session is fueling is working well. So this is something, fueling, hydration, it's a massive part of the marathon training. And I have learned this the hard way with some bad experiences with bonking because I've not had enough fuel. I've had the opposite where I've overfueled or not trained the gut enough, and let's just say I had some Paula Radcliffe-esque issues there, but that's a different story. This is a really key part, and it starts the day before and then during the run itself. The day before, hydration, tablets, sodium, big carby meal. The day of, before the run, some oats, some caffeine, some electrolyte, and a banana. And during the run, get some gel in you. Gels in itself, during the runs, that's a whole episode in itself, which I'll cover another time. But in short, depending on your body weight and all these kind of things, 70, 80, 90 grams of carbs an hour is something to aim for. It's taken me a long time to train up the guts, and I'm getting to that stage now. So every 20 minutes, I take a gel. So yesterday I ran for 2 hours 45, so I ended up doing 7 gels. A couple of normal ones, a couple of sodium ones to help the sweat loss, and a caffeine one, just to give me a bit of an energy boost as well. So that's taken a lot of training, and that worked really well. And it actually mentally helps me just break up the marathon or the training into 20-minute blocks. I know I've got a gel to look forward to. It tastes all right, and it just helps me compartmentalize. So what's something you could do? 2 things. Go into your search engine of choice and type in something like running, fueling, calculator or something like that. There's loads of calculators out there, and that will tell you how many carbs based on your body weight and the distance that you can or should be trying. The second thing you can do is just buy any gel to start with if you're not familiar with it, and just take one halfway through your run and just see how the gut goes, how it feels, and then build up from there. If you are a bit more experienced with the gels, then my suggestion is to try to get up to that 90 grams and try to get the mixture right to bring in some sodium and some caffeine too. So have a look. And the third and final, arguably most important reflection is headphones are a nice to have, not a must to have. I was devastated to learn that my headphones hadn't been charged properly. And I learned that a third of the way through the run. I was getting a third
Oh no!
through the run.
A third of the way in.
And right enough,
Headphones have died.
for about 12 or so K.
Only a third of the way.
And I always
I'm not used to running with my deep dark thoughts. And I'm under a tunnel.
It was all right. It was all right. I think I prefer to wear headphones. I'll probably wear it for Sydney, even though there'll be a bit of buzz from the crowd. I think 65,000 are expected, or 35,000 are expected. But nonetheless, I think I chalk that off as a bit of a fail for the session itself, but a win for the marathon, in case headphones don't work or they drop out or something like that on race day. Again, I can look back at the training and say, I've done it. It's fine, I've got this. So my tip to you, something you can do next, and I'm reluctant to say this, do a run without any headphones. Be with your thoughts. Take that as a mental 1% gain, stacking that up for next time. I am the Kilted Runner Down Under because I'm Scottish and I wear kilts and I live in Australia. Makes sense. So I'm starting a bit of a vlog on YouTube and Instagram and Strava, so please follow and subscribe. If you are chasing marathon PB and juggling life and kids and work, then I'd love to hear from you. Some of the wins, some of the tough moments, comment below. I'd love to hear from you.